Greetings, Darklings, from across the interwebs. It is once again I, the Duchess Precious Ken. Our first podcast back, fresh off being at Cold Waves, goth summer camp, which rejuvenates me every year when I go, when I get to hang out and see great music and be around everybody. It was a really special one this year, and I'll have a written piece coming up about that. I also have a couple of shout outs of new things that are on my radar and I'm listening to right now. In particular, one of the wonderful people I saw at Cold Waves was Saphira V. Has a new EP out called Accent. Very, very cool. A lot of neat guest artists as always that she's brought in, like Dread Wrists from Texas, Sawtooth. I really like that remix. And then, of course, another person I saw at Cold Waves, our dear friend Martin King of Dog Tablet. And it was just wonderful to run in and see him. So that is something you will want to check out. And as well, the other big one is I'm really into right now. I found this guy in Australia called Desmond Doom, and he does goth surf rock. And Rachel played this for me and sent it to me. And so I'm real excited to have a review up of that and dig in, but check out Desmond Doom. So now, without further ado, I have a really exciting guest, somebody who has been just such an intricate part of the music scene, and I think has real punk rock street cred going back. And so we're excited to have her as a guest on the show. Mona Muir, hello.
Hello, I'm so proud and happy to be here and guest in your show. Absolutely.
The pleasure is all ours. And you're coming all the way from Germany right now, correct? In your studio?
I'm coming all the way from Germany. I am in Germany.
Well, that's true. Yes, but
I come to you all the way from Berlin. That's right. I'm here in my home and my studio, which is basically the same. It's my studio Katana, where I hang out and work. And if work is over, I still hang out here and listen and enjoy myself. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. I loved Berlin. I got to go a few years back. We covered the Cold Transmission Festival, which was in Cologne, but then afterwards we went over to Berlin. And I remember thinking, I went to Berghain and, stuff like that, and thinking that if 25-year-old Ken would have been in this city, it would have been the best place in the entire world. But 42-year-old Ken got tired and up past his bedtime really quick in Berlin. That everybody else was having way more fun than me. I couldn't hang long.
I understand perfectly well. It seems to be the party capital of the world now, which is sometimes...
It was, and just so much going on, and just so many interesting bands and art scenes, and it was just easy to get lost wandering around in there and just seeing so much rich culture happening 24/7.
Oh, yes, definitely. I sometimes have a hard time chasing the people from my window pane away, where they sit and give interviews. But then I have to turn on my speaker system at 140 decibel, and unfortunately
just blow them right off the window.
They are away in a second because I need to be here and work here because I'm on the ground floor. That's yeah. It's sometimes a bit strange.
So for some of our listeners that may not be as familiar with you over here with American audiences, tell me a little bit about your history, and we'll kind of go through it in parts because there's a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. But start out for me, what was the moment when you kind of said to yourself there in the 80s, you saw something, you heard something, that musical rock and roll power hit you, and you said, this is for me. This is who I am and what my life is.
So yeah, there was such a moment, but I'm doing music since my entire life. I started age 3, actually, singing to people, and I started playing piano age 7 and guitar as a teenager too. So I was always doing music, and I had a kind of heavy metal band at 16. It was, I don't know, we played a kind kind of some covers.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, which is a bit awkward to tell, but yeah, we had these Marshall Towers. I was actually playing some guitar already there, but the time you are asking about, obviously, was really 1980, which turned out for me, obviously there was a big bang going on, like
Right.
with the punk, new wave, the whole thing. I don't put it in drawers too much. For me, this was one huge big bang.
Right.
And I just knew I was on the right time, on the right place. I was in Hamburg back then, but we had strong connections to West Berlin, obviously, but also to England. So it was really an ecstatic moment to see that I'm super young. I was looking for musicians, I mean, literally on the streets, because there were so few people who were listening to this kind of new music back then in Germany. You would like identify yourself easily on the streets. And this is how I actually met Mark Chung of Neubauten, kind of on the street. And there were like 2 or 3
As one does.
This is like really literally 3 bars where you could go, where you could listen to Susie and the Banshees, to Bauhaus. I was very much into that back then. Maybe some years before, there was already Patti Smith, who was a great explosion for me in my head too, because I saw, wow, you can be, as a woman, you can be the rock and roller and the poet and the guitarist. You don't need anybody. You don't have to stand there and just admire the guys. No, you don't have to. For me, this was a super special moment. So
I tell you, that's the first thing when I think of you that I associate with is the industrial Patti Smith. Like that is the first thing that pops into my head is that connection. So I love hearing you say that.
It's too much honor for me. Obviously, Patti is super huge. But
there's plenty of space for several super huge, amazing women in this scene.
Oh, thank you. That's sweet. Yeah, Patti, definitely. That was like, especially, I could name Radio Ethiopia was the record for me. I also loved very much this raw guitar on it, raw guitar playing. This is what I really like. Yeah,
and just the fact, I think with her too, that the vocal, she was one of the first women that was, you don't have to be pretty in how you're singing.
Yeah, you don't have to show your
important.
Excuse me, yeah.
Exactly, like you can be just as raw and raunchy as anybody else.
But you can if you want. And
right,
if you
exactly.
But you don't have to. You just don't give a solitary, you just do your thing. And this is, I think, most important. And so I think, I think Susie and the Banshees, and then there was something happening in Germany, which was later called Neue Deutsche Welle, German New Wave. And in the beginning, this was really the underground German New Wave. There were Neubauten, Abwärts. There was a bunch of really original and fresh bands who sang in German, which was not easy for us Germans to sing in German for several good reasons. But yeah, there was an explosion of really original stuff, and it was right out there. And then I met all these people from Neubauten, from this band called Abwärts. Have you heard about them?
I have not. I'll have to look that up.
They were huge, and they deserved to be huge. There was this guy Frank Z. He's one of the greatest lyricists, I think, until now. So this band Abwärts was really huge, and FM Einheit and Mark Chung played also in Abwärts. So this was the big thing in 1980, actually. Abwärts, Amok, Koma. It's kind of punk. It has some elements of Chrome, this band Chrome, Helios Creed. We adored his guitar playing too. And this kind of strange lizard-like vocal, quite deeply mixed into the track. So that was Abwärts. I met Abwärts and Neubauten people, and immediately, and also Anja Huwe of X-Mal Deutschland. X-Mal Deutschland, you know them?
I do.
So they are friends since then. And yeah, and we all worked. We all kind of left our normal jobs, university, everything that you could split with, we split. And we thought we gonna be musicians, and we gonna meet in this first independent distribution called Rip Off in Hamburg. And this was kind of famous.
Yeah.
And there was a record label, and there was this distribution, totally independent, no big companies, no major, so-called major companies, nothing of the like. So yeah, this was in 1980 in summer and fall, and this is, I hope this answers your question.
It does. And I love too hearing a lot of the parallels there of, kind of thinking like the Manchester scene and, it kind of being this DIY underground thing, or
Right.
New York, Debbie Harry and, that kind of scene happening.
Right.
And in hearing about that there, and especially when you talked about Neubauten, it reminded me a lot of, I did an interview a while back with Rodney Orpheus of the Cassandra Complex,
Oh,
and
yes.
kind of almost the exact same story where he was telling he walked into a bar and Hawkwind was on, and he just sat down with this guy there and started talking about Hawkwind, and that was Andrew Eldritch. And and they, started to, and so it just had that feel very much of how connections could get made then, when it was, if you had that attitude and that look, you could spot each other from across the room.
That's right. And back then the scene was really small. So everybody was creative, was either a musician or somebody who wrote about this kind of music, or somebody, also the wild painters, die neuen Wilden, the new wild, or the new savages, or some of them got really huge and world famous and very rich. Of these painters, of course.
Usually, I mean, you don't get that type of thing in your lifetime, so I love it. It's great to see it when it happens.
Yeah. So yes, it was the one time where I felt really I fit into the picture, which was not so much later, but later was later.
Well, let's do that a little then and skip ahead, because, like you said, you started out in a very, I don't know, genreless scene. And on the show, I talk about this a lot, that frankly, I have very little use for genre beyond, if you like band A, you might like band B. And that's about as much as I bother to care about genre. But you then kind of got into, more of this electronic movement, and are associated sometimes with some industrial things later on. I know, more recently you had toured with Anesh and done things there. Tell me a little bit about that part of your history.
Look, it's great that you mentioned these like little doubts about this genre thing.
Yeah.
I never, ever thought about this, actually. I'm a musician.
Sure.
I do music as good as I can. Quality is very important for me. Originality. This is, I'm not out to copy anything that is already there 10 times or a million times. This is a fact I don't get until today. How could I try to copy a style? But okay. So
yeah, genre isn't for artists to think about. Genre is for reviewers like me to write about later.
Maybe people are obsessed with that, or they need it. That's fine for me, but it's not for me. I never ever thought.
I'm with you on that one.
And
but
I'm interested also in playing several instruments. So when I had this first band consisting of Einheit, Hacke, Chung, and Go the B from front, so that was like, there was guitar, there were also synthesizers and noises, and we were all, I was a great Throbbing Gristle fan back then. And so the early industrial music for me, only for me personally, okay?
Sure.
Throbbing Gristle. And maybe Neubauten in a different way, because they used a lot of this physical, like trash from the trash sites and the
or Test Department. I think another one like had that same thing in a different part of the world.
So this is, for me, industrial music is not about using synthesizers or whatsoever. It's more a political or an art movement for me. They are concept artists for me. And so the measures you take to transport your concept art can be anything. It can be whatever you find fit in this moment of creation. So I was certainly from the beginning interested also in this industrial stuff, because I adored Throbbing Gristle. I think there was a year I heard 90%. I was listening to to Dead on Arrival, and 20 jazz funk grades and stuff like this. So I found this very fascinating. But obviously, they used whatever they found fit. So there is not a lot of guitar playing, but there's also a way they use synthesizers in their own very special way.
Sure.
Maybe misuse them, abuse these instruments. And
they probably did get beat up pretty badly, I imagine.
I guess so. Yeah, so and then I was obviously influenced by what people I meet, what do they have to offer, where are they good at? And so it's possible that 3 years I have a band with 2 guitar players.
Mm-hmm.
Then when we split, which was crazy and idiotic, but it happened as it happened. So the next steps is, who do I meet next, and what's happening there? What's happening when I meet other people who are great piano players, or who are great, who are inspiring with electronic stuff, which I was always very interested in electronic music too, because I find this is fascinating and creative. And so I got into computers and samplers quite early myself too. But this is why it looks maybe my oeuvre is a little strange to understand for people, because it sounds always a little different, because I don't care about genres. Yeah, to sum this up, maybe
sure.
This makes the whole thing more understandable.
I love hearing that, and I love hearing that. I think it's just that. I feel like you are a person who uses collaboration very well. And like you said, when you're deciding what musical direction to go in, I think a lot of times it comes from what the tools around you in your bag were. Like we kind of talked briefly a moment ago, the album before the brand new one that we're going to discuss soon, but had a lot of twang to the guitar and you had some influence there, because you did bring in another guitar player to work on it with you.
You mean the Delinquent album, which I did with Goldkind, because the Delinquent and Snake Island, they are both done with Goldkind.
Oh, okay.
Quite a figure here. I know also since the 80s. He's a multi-instrumentalist, and he got very early into producing. He started out as myself. We are both from Hamburg, Hamburgers, actually. Hamburgers, ladies and gentlemen. He was one of the first punks in Hamburg. And then he moved to Berlin, where he had his own band where he sang and played trombone. But then he got into production with Conny Plank, this famous guy in Cologne, who was producer of, for instance, Deutsch-Amerikanische Freundschaft, DAF. I'm sure you know them.
Like the chart, yeah.
Yeah. So, but then Goldkind had some mainstream hits. He is also a kind of chameleon. Excuse me.
That's all right.
The zip of Coca-Cola. Yeah. So, and Goldkind is also playing bass. He plays guitar. So we lost track for 20 years or 15. And I found him back 6 or 7 years ago here in Berlin. And I had done 2 albums with NS, like Mon Amour and NS, and great albums with a heavy electronic, a lot of guitar, heavy guitar. But I felt that I felt I needed to go in between. I needed to go a different way. I don't know.
Sure.
So Ash was really busy with his solo stuff. And I met Goldkind, and this is I love very heavy distorted guitars. I love heavy guitars. I love distorted guitars, and I also love these twangy guitars. And this is what Goldkind came up with. I said, look, and that was after I was touring the US quite heavily with Ash. I think from 2010 to 2015. I was on tour with him every year between like 2 months or 3 weeks, really long. And also we had visited the Mojave Desert.
Oh, wow.
And we hung out in Barstow, and it was so impressive for me. I even recorded the desert. I took a recording device and recorded the silence. It's not silence, actually. If you crank it up, you hear a lot of stuff in the desert.
I
But anyway,
imagine.
so I had these impressions in my head, and and uh, and then came Goldkind some years later with his twangy guitars, and there it was, everything. It was really crazy. It brought up all these images and impressions I had in my head, and so we did this album. We wrote these songs in kind of very short time. I mean, producing the stuff properly took long then, but coming up with these songs, it was like écriture automatique. I didn't even write down the lyrics. I just he sent me these tracks, like basic tracks, like just a guitar or a guitar and a groove or something, and immediately there it was. So
It
this
started flowing. I love the idea of that, kind of talking that this is somebody that you knew kind of in your punk rock youth and his, and then you branched apart for a couple decades and grew and learned, and as people.
I did other stuff.
Yeah. But and then come back together to kind of meet up again, where you had both that history, but now parts of each other's lives that you had been apart from each other from, and getting to re-know somebody and find a way to make that musically fit with what you had both learned. I love the idea of that, and I don't know, I think you can hear that excitement in a lot of the songs on it, and that's what I like, that it came across very energetic and bright, in how I don't know, the excitement level of the music. You can hear when an artist, to me, has their heart in it. And that's, I think, what really hit me on that album. And when I hear that was a connection going on, that adds another layer of it to me.
Look, otherwise I would not make a record. If this was not the case, I would just stay away from making a record, because it can't live, it can't be interesting if I myself am not interested in it. And so, Godkins, he said to me, he had waited since long to get this opportunity, because it's the first time we worked together, actually, was this for this Delinquent album.
Oh, wow.
And so he has a great studio, and he has a lot of experience, and I have a nice studio, and some experience, and so we could work, and we don't have to explain our lives to each other. This makes it so nice. This makes it so relaxed. There's no ego stuff involved. This is maybe the main point. So I don't have to explain, look, I am Mon Amour, I did this and that, and blah.
Right, you just are old friends who are re-meeting up, and it isn't about that. It's just about sitting down in a room together and writing songs.
And being inspired by the other person's crazy world. But it's the same with Ash, of course. It's just the same. So, so because obviously KMFDM opened for the Mon Amour band in '85 here in Hamburg. It was a huge concert, and they were just super young starting out. And I was already kind of there, a little bit established back then, and then they disappeared to the US, which I was not aware of, that they came out so big later. Just much later, I figured that out. It's pretty much a North American phenomenon, the second wave of industrial
or whatever.
For me, this is more a crossover thing, because it's also a lot of dance electronics in it, even techno. So I had no idea about this until I met Ash, and then it was when he invited me on tour. It was the first time actually I really got to know New York, LA. I mean, the whole country. I never traveled to the US before, apart from one short week, very long time ago, where I didn't see so much. But I always thought, the music will bring me there, and it did. And so this whole Chicago US wave of industrial all of a sudden made perfectly sense to me, because you have to be there and feel the vibe of this country, and get an idea, and it clicks. And of course, you understand why it's as it is. Like in the
I do, because it came full circle for me there, because just kind of how you were saying, 16-year-old Ken saw KMFDM and Lords of Acid in Pontiac, Michigan. And that was definitely one of those moments that, because to me, what you're talking about, like that wave of industrial, that was my punk rock.
I
You know,
understand.
that kind of happened, but that was my angry rebellion, wear boots and a trench coat. You know, that was my scene
No,
for it, where I
I
kind of got to feel that same wave. And it has a lot of the same emotion, you know. And going
yes.
back to something you said a minute ago, about kind of like the punk rock aspects of it, or how you've always approached music, is something that comes up today. A lot of bands want to have or maybe it's a lot of the fans, a separation between politics and art, or politics and music in this sense. And to me, I think those things are so intricately entwined.
Oh
Um,
yes, I
and
agree.
and I feel like that's another aspect of your music, is just how you wear your heart on your sleeve in your songs. You know, you will tackle any topic or any, you know, when you're singing in things. Do you kind of have a thought on maybe how that's changed, and how important it is to have that in the forefront of the music that we're making and listening to?
No, I'm not sure I get you right. You mean, do I think about a political message before I write lyrics, or no? No. Do you?
I think it's more, do you openly discuss, whether it's sure in maybe your music, but also just when I've seen interviews from you and things like that, you talk about what's important to you and what you think needs to happen in changes in the world openly.
Oh, also, I'm certainly not apologetic in the way that I would never say art and politics should not match. This is simply not possible. This
Yeah,
is simply be worthless or empty, or I don't know. Another thing is I'm not a protest singer. I don't stand
sure,
there
sure.
with a wooden guitar singing, "Oh, the world is so bad, so bad." I'm not doing this. So something inside has to happen. There has to be a transformation of this energy. Of course, my feelings are very strong, especially at the moment of what's going on here in this world.
Yes.
Yes, so this is pretty obvious that I have to be careful not to get desperate to see all these old zombie stuff raising the head again, like young men being thrown into the bone mill again, and willingly marching into the bone mill everywhere. Also, the greed of corporate companies. I'm sorry. This
No,
is
that's
it's so overwhelming, and it's so obvious that this cannot have come to a good end.
right.
This is so super obvious that we need to change, and I'm not sure it's possible to prevent this kind of mean energy to destroy the world. Basically, I don't want to say it so, but this
Sure.
is what we are talking about at the
Yeah,
moment.
I do feel though that like there was a time, kind of like you were talking about, you know, the Joe Strummer trained us for, in that music, this was coming to a head in a lot of ways before in the world then, and music and artists stepped up to the forefront to kind of, I don't know, be the universal or the, you know, world conscious of getting it to the forefront. And I kind of wonder, because things, as you said, are so dark right now and coming to a head, is that what we need to erupt from a music again? And do you think it can in the same way?
But you know how it is. In the right moment, you hear somebody sings a certain sentence, or a poetic artifact hits you in the head.
Mm-hmm.
It changes the way of your life somehow. I still believe in this power. In this power, I do believe I don't believe that a poor musician can change the world alone. So after like 4 decades of doing music, I'm kind of humbled.
Sure.
I think I can maybe influence my inner circle, the people who are like within my reach, or so I'm happy if I can, and if it's only entertain people in an energetic way, this is already good.
Sure.
But yeah, you never know. You never know what makes the difference. And so I would always follow this path of I can just be a poet and an artist. That's all I can do. And I do this without any conditions. I mean,
Sure.
I don't think about, oh, this should not be too loud or too harsh, or oh, this should be like this or like that now. I'm not doing this at all. It didn't make my career easier, obviously, but I'm
Sure.
absolutely not the person willing to compromise here, not at all.
Yes.
And I have the luxury to be able to do so because I work a lot for films and for games. So
Hmm.
so this was a very an important step for me to decide this. But this is like also like almost 3 decades ago. I saw I have to stand on another leg than only be the singer in a band or in my own band or just the singer. I'm not. I saw this very early, and I absolutely wanted to make music and only music in my life. So I don't want to do anything else for a profession, and I was very headstrong with that. And so I'm not. So I do basically what I want in my own music. So yeah.
No, I think that's so important. And I do think that's another positive thing about music today is more than ever, people can do this on their own because you can, for an affordable amount of money, have a home studio where you can produce quality and have access to, where that wasn't always the case as much back in the day, where
Oh,
you
absolutely
had
not.
to work with a label or a studio or other people because it cost an exorbitant amount of money to
That's
do
right.
those things. So I think it does free up opportunity for artistic expression where artists can, in a lot of ways, do anything you can think of now because they have access to that through technology.
That's
And that's an exciting time. So leading up then, that's a perfect segue into your new album and talking about it. And like I said, I've been listening to it a lot this weekend, Snake Island. And this was a new thing for you where you kind of had a access to a new style and something new to say. What was it that you felt was different and special about doing this record as opposed to other projects or albums you've done in the past?
well, uh, it's my second album with Goldkind, so it's
Hmm.
obviously not so different in the procedure. And
Sure.
also Goldkind moved from Berlin to Spain. He lives now near Barcelona, which for us doesn't make such a big difference. Of course, I miss to hang out with the dude because he had this nice studio on Tempelhof Airfield. But okay, so we are a kind of really well-established team, and he
Mhm.
had more really dark tracks actually to offer. And I got into this electric guitar playing very much 3 years ago because I played guitar as a teenager, not so bad actually, but it was not electric. It was not amplified. And and then I thought, oh man,
You really were doing folk
I
singing
had
back then.
pardon,
I
pardon.
said you really were doing folk singing back then. You had acoustic guitars back then.
It was not precisely folk singing, but I played a lot. No, I played a lot instrumental stuff on the guitar, but it
Mhm.
didn't. I don't know. Back then, I didn't follow on with it. But I had this Stratocaster quite a while ago. I thought I want to play guitar for myself, just
Yeah.
with record it for film music or have it as an instrument color you know, but I didn't think about really intensely playing it, but I don't know where this came from actually, because I'm I love so much these hard guitars. I love to I'm tell you later what I like to listen to. But anyway, so
But I
I
do
started,
think that's an important part of this record. Is to me, when I'm hearing it, the guitar is one of the things that jumps out at me first. That so much like this is a
yeah,
guitar centered album in a lot of ways. Like
yeah,
the guitar takes the
yeah.
lead on a lot of it. And so to me, when I hear that and see them behind you and think that, yeah, tell me about what was making you, I don't know, fall in love with the idea of that sound for 2022 and having a guitar being so much a centerpiece.
It's really my personal obsession, because I started playing and enjoying it so much, and enjoying it even more. And then I had some concerts with this Delinquent album, and I
Mhm.
already played it on stage together with Gary Schmalzel, who is here on Ace of Spades doing the solo on Ace of
Yeah.
Spades. That's Gary. It's my friend Gary, and so I was quite supported by the boys, helping me and to get into this, because it's quite complicated. I had no ideas before about single coils and humbucker pickups and stuff like this, you know. So
Did
I
you
had
feel
to
like you
go.
learned a lot about that as you went along
Of
with this
course,
record?
I have to, because otherwise I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. So I started playing more and more, and I play here, and I used it also on stage. And 3 years ago it was a bit awkward, and now it feels much better. And I said to God Kid, okay, we do a second album, but I will play guitar all over the place. And he said, okay. And so there you are. And I kind of developed my own style, this very slow but very huge and loud
Yeah.
and raw. This is almost doomy. And so I started also to listen to Slayer a lot, which is another thing, but also these, there are very slow, tuned down,
Yeah.
a D to E drop, and even lower, like these tuned down tunings. And I love this. And yeah, and so I play every day, obviously. And so I said I do this album with you, but as it has to be super doomy, super dark, because this is how I felt was going on. Because since 3 years, the world seems to be kind of out of everything. But
Yeah.
this is, of course, only from our side, from my point of view, as a pampered German Western
Sure.
kid sitting in her nice studio. For other people in the world, the doom already happens ever since they can think.
Yeah.
If you look into other countries and other continents, there's a lot of terrible lives going on under terrible circumstances. So it is
Sure.
only for us, it's right now with this pandemic and now this war we have to face here. But there were
Yeah.
wars all over the place, but just further away. So and now it's us ourselves, kind of.
No,
So
it's true. And so I do love hearing that. I'm gonna turn it a little lighter for a second with my next question. And my bass player, Colin, actually his other hobby, aside from us doing the band and working on Sounds and Shadows, is that he makes guitars from scratch, like
wow.
hand carved guitar, like chops down a tree, like
Oh my God.
makes a block of
It's
wood, like
amazing.
and makes these beautiful guitars. I have one, several people in the scene he's made one for. So if I was to commission Colin to build your dream guitar from scratch, now that you've done research and kind of learned about what
A
you
little
like
bit.
a little bit,
I'm not any, I'm not even close to be an expert or something.
sure, but this
Just
is about
follow, you
what
know.
you like the feel of. What kind of guitar would be your dream as the monomure exclusive guitar? Like what style do you think do you prefer? Is it the Stratocaster like you have
Yeah,
there, or
to be honest, yes. I will always have Stratocaster.
Stratocaster. They're
Ah,
good guitars.
there's
I had
one
one.
exception. There's one exception, and now I tell you my secret wet dream.
Yes, that's what I want, the juice.
It's flying V. I want a flying V.
A fly. Now that's
That
cool.
will be a flying V.
I don't know that he's ever done one. I might have to ask Colin about a fly. I mean, that's cool. So you want to get way up on the fretboard and shred. You really have been listening to Slayer lately.
Shredder guitar. I watch a lot of live videos just to my pleasure, and I enjoy it so much. And it's so over the top and so out. You know, L7, they
About to go back on tour.
I know.
Very exciting. I was a big L7 fan.
I hope they kick ass. I saw a video where they already like reformed and they played Hellfest in 2015, which is only 7 years. For me, is not very long.
Yeah.
They were great, actually. They were absolutely great. So I will have an eye on that. And there are some nice films where you see them just, they are so good. They were so tight and so good. So the next guitar would be a flying V. But no, I'm not really, I'm aspiring to be, an expert on this. This is just out of fun and love and this feeling when you play. It explains a lot to me, actually. It explains a lot of the behavior you see the boys and dudes on stage. Now I know why, because you automatically get to this position.
There is a magic that comes from when you find the right guitar that feels right in your hand.
Crank it up, and there is a magic. It's like a drug. And actually, also, we couldn't go out so much in the last 2 years.
I know. Yes.
Pandemic. So I could really. This helped me so much. The urge to live and to do extreme things I could do in my room here.
Now we're going to change gears a little bit here because you have another hobby that I'm kind of interested in, wanted to ask in. My friend Michael from Industrial Island that I know you've played with, and let me know because of from a talk I was having with his daughter that you also are a deadly martial artist. And
I'm a martial artist. That's right. Yeah.
Well, I believe the word he uses was a dangerous woman with martial arts.
That's.
But
it's the contrary. Actually, you get very peaceful by training a lot.
Sure. Well, no, I mean that's very true and makes sense. I used to train MMA when I was a lot thinner. But tell me a little bit about how that came about and why it became important to you. And like you said, the discipline, the piece of it, does that play a factor in your music?
I would say it rather saved my life than playing like an active role in my music. I don't think so. It's rather that I started doing Taekwondo in 1980 already for 1.5 years with a Korean master in Hamburg. And then came all this punk rock times, and it was absolutely for me back then not possible to do this training 3 evenings a week. It was just not possible. But I got back to it 10 years later. So 1990. Since then, I'm training every week and all the time. I never stopped, and it helped me survive my rock and roll style habits. Basically, when you are training, you can't drink, you can't smoke. It's very easy, but it also gives you these. It kicks ass. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Gives you
that's why I found it very interesting that
without using
the other thing that you chose to do.
So I got really passionate about this. It's so elegant, it's brutal, it's elegant, but you don't hurt anybody, you don't hurt yourself. And I got really, really into that. And I even did it like, I did championships and stuff like this. I was really mad about it for 10 years. Yeah, that's right. But I do it until now, but as I said, for me, it helps me to survive. Maybe I was so full of energy, and I didn't know where to get this energy. And
Yeah.
I did it. I lived a terrible rock and roll life for some years back then.
Sure.
And if I hadn't found this channel, it's a channel for the energy. This
Yeah.
training, I don't know what would have happened with me actually. And so I'm not smoking, I'm not drinking. Yeah. So I have my,
I love to hear that. I think that's amazing. And I mean, just to, as you said, finding another way to maybe put whatever that, what was anger or something like that, where you kind of, like you said, had a punk lifestyle or something like that, but you needed to find something healthier that you chose to put that in.
Of course
And
it's anger. Of course
yeah,
it's anger. It's rage. It's sacred rage about what you're
love that
witnessing
term.
everywhere. Exactly. You're so full of this. And I'm just thankful I found this other passion that is not killing myself. Actually, like J.J. Burnell of the Stranglers, he is
Mhm.
also a sixth dan or maybe even seventh dan karate master now. So that was the only person in this rock and roll scene who also got on this very. He's the boss of the South England Shidokan karate movement. He is really. We trained together once when I did this solo record in the late 80s in England. This Mona Moore called, which was produced by JJ and
Right.
Dave, and I went into his training actually. Ay, 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 ay. Yeah, he is like a monster.
That's
He has so much energy. He had absolutely he needed to put this somewhere else.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. So coming up here for the new record, and I had you as Song of the Day today in Sounds and Shadows for the
Oh,
Motorhead cover.
oh,
So
wow.
yeah, that's and everybody was playing that and listening to it.
Great. Thank you.
What do
That's
you
cool.
have coming up where people can, I mean, the album is out on Bandcamp now, but are you going to go on the road at all? Do you have any festivals that you're excited for, kind of anything that you're going to do to promote for this record?
Yeah, actually, I have not been in the US since 2015 now.
Mhm.
This is where I kind of uh, had to
It's
change it.
hard now to travel. It's really complicated
and
right now.
then and then it became really, really bad, everything. So I don't have to describe this. But actually, now I'm signed to Give Take, who are
Yes.
a US-based label,
Mhm.
and Minneapolis and LA-based label. And I got some, yeah, I feel the desire is coming back, and Mr. Trump is gone.
That makes us all feel a lot better, trust me.
But whatever, we have so many nice friends and fans, and they have nothing to do with this. So anyway, I would love to be able to play some shows in the US next year, next fall, or something like this. If there are any festivals out there, please message me, because I would love to put another little tour together, if possible, in next fall. You know how unsecure everything is now.
Yeah.
But hey, you can follow your plans, and you can have some wishes and desires. So yeah, this is what I would love to do actually. Maybe even with NS together.
That would be lovely. And so, listeners out there, and I know there's plenty of them that are festival and show runners. I mean,
I would
that's
love
something
to.
you reach out to Mona.
Please.
This is something you need to do, is get her over here to a festival so I can come see her in America.
Exactly. So yeah, this is what I would love to do the most, if you ask me. Yeah.
So one last thing I want to ask you about here is, we're a music review page, Sounds and Shadow, first and foremost. And so
Okay.
I always like to hear, I feel there's a renaissance happening in kind of new music, with a lot of things coming out that has me excited. And so I'm always curious to hear what an artist is listening to and is inspiring to them. Is there anything that you're hearing now, whether it's old or new, but that you're finding inspiring right now and exciting you to listen to?
So it doesn't have to be brand new.
No, it doesn't. I mean, we
No.
like to really kind of highlight and lift up, new music coming out. But no, like you said, I mean, if Slayer's what you're listening to, then tell me about that.
Yeah, Slayer, Angel of Death. No, whatever. There was one artist I really admire. I only got to know recently, too late, but recently, and that is Fever Ray. Do you know?
Oh, yeah.
And that is Fever Ray. Actually, I got it caught my attention through the Vikings.
Mhm.
Vikings series.
Yeah, the TV show. Yep. Yeah.
The intro, and I almost
It's an
fell
awesome
from
intro.
the chair, and so I had to watch 89 times Vikings. I always to have this intro, and of course I was listening to the whole song, and then I bought her albums. Karin Dreyer, who had this duo with her brother. The Knife is also good. There are some awesome songs who just, but I think Fever Ray is magic. It's a bit frightening and it's magical. And her last album, Plunge, and I bought this one too. There's this absolutely great song, Red Trails, and I'm playing guitar to Red Trails because she has no guitar. She has no guitars on it. It's fully electronic. Maybe she needs me.
She needs one. She needs to get a hold of you then. Yeah.
This is really magical, and I don't even want to speak so much about it. She has a certain power, and everybody, of course, waits for a new album because she canceled her tour in 2018.
Right.
But now, since a week, there are new signs of action from her side. I'm a great fan of Karin Dreyer, actually. She's groundbreaking and a daring and so courageous artist. Fantastic.
Very exciting. Anybody else that you want to give a shout out to that you're listening to? Because if not, I have one for you.
Oh, yes.
That when I think of you and hear you, and so a dear friend of mine that's in the Chicago industrial scene, Anya, of a band called Ayatoya, who is from Poland but lives here in Chicago. And I know, aren't you of a Polish descent as well?
Yes, I have. My grandmother was Polish, Ukrainian. My parents spoke Polish at home, and they also spoke Russian. It was like they are from this area where everything mixed. But yes, and I have obviously Polish friends because I did an album in Poland.
Yeah. So she went to school with Martin Atkins of Pigface. And is this amazing live performer that is kind of in the industrial scene. She's a part of the industrial supergroup, the Joy Thieves, in addition to doing her own thing. But absolutely amazing. And they call her the One Woman Army. And she writes everything herself, produces everything, plays the guitars on stage, does the light show on stage, all herself, just her on stage doing it all. So there's one, I'll send you a link you should look up. I bet she would be your style. I bet you guys are kind of kindred spirits.
Like maybe we should tour together. I don't know.
You should. She went on tour opening for Pigface, her last tour, and is amazing.
And this is, I heard about her, absolutely.
Yeah.
So please send me some links.
I will.
This is how I get to know music. When nice people and friends send me links and put my attention in.
That's what we're all about here, is finding ways to get it in front of people and highlight people in the scene.
I'd love that. So please do this, okay?
I will. It has been such a pleasure talking to you. I really thoroughly enjoyed this album. I'm going to have a written review coming out for it soon. And I want to find a way, now that I hear you're in the market for it, to have somebody get you over here for a festival or a tour. So I'm going to put some feelers out. But the thing we like to do at the end of the interview here at Sounds and Shadows is spin out to one track of yours so that people can get a flavor for it and hear it. So I know that the video track that you guys have out is Shieldval. I know because I was a VJ for MTV TV the other day, and I got to announce it, introduce it. But is that the track or another one that you feel really encapsulates what you want people to hear first on this album to know what it's about, that we can spin out to? Yeah.
I mean, Shieldval, so you know it and you know what it's all about.
Yeah.
And I think it's the heaviest track on this album, and it was meant to be. It was so martial, and in the same time full of disgust for all this war shit and stuff, but in the same time fascinated by super heavy.
It chugs. It could play in a club. One of the things I really liked about it is the drum beats and everything. It could play in a club, but also it definitely had this like boot stomping factor to it, where you felt like
So if we don't want this, and if we want to give a more open, because this is not what the whole album is about. This is obviously a kind of extreme peak on this album.
Sure.
So then you ask me what you should play. Then I would say I would play the Dream Rider.
Beautiful. I love it. I think that's perfect. So from here at Sounds and Shadows, we have been talking with Mona Muir, and this is the brand new album that has just come out on Give Take, Snake Island, and the track you are about to hear is the opening track, Dream Rider.
Oh,
so
lovely.
Everybody out there in interweb land, keep it dark and support artists.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Mwah.
Say your real name now. Show your real face as I show mine. Time to reveal it. Time to reveal it. I try to believe it. Trying to breathe it into my body. I could be fading into the sea. Like a leech sucks on my brain. Beautiful, beautiful, like a light so shiny and vain.